Hello and welcome to Kingdom of Context. Do a little mic check here, mic check. Let me know if you can hear me in the live stream. Let me know if the audio sounds solid. Let me know if it sounds good. Trying out a new little wireless mic system we have. Welcome, guys. Today we want to talk about standing your ground, fighting as a Christian in this society. How do we do that? What are the rules? How much of God's word applies to us in that regard? So I want to thank you guys for being here. Hopefully, thank you, Avery. Said Mike sounds solid. Okay. I appreciate you guys being here. Hopefully this will go well. You guys can call in. Link is in the video description as well as the live chat pinned. If you want to call in and talk about, obviously we're going to review the hot thing right now, which is this guy, Pastor Tony Spell from Louisiana, getting in a fight with this dude, which is his neighbor. And is he justified in what he did? What are the situations? What does God's word say? That kind of stuff. So you guys are welcome to call in. We can chat it up, whether you agree or disagree with whatever is being said. Okay. Hey, Bruce, welcome, brother. He's asking about thinking about learning self-defense. What martial arts should I learn? Think about MMA. Yeah, MMA could be good. Depends on what gym you're going to. If they're only teaching you ground and pound, that can be good on a one-on-one fight. But if you're in a group, that's not going to help you. Okay, you need to learn situational awareness. Excuse me. You'll need to learn how to position yourself with multiple attackers. Usually you're going to find that kind of stuff in a more traditional style self-defense / karate or taekwondo class. Not always in an MMA class. They may be able to teach you that. You just may have to specifically request it, as opposed to, because they're just mostly going to be teaching you MMA, which is usually depends on the gym. It's heavily dominant with jiu-jitsu. So jiu-jitsu is going to be a lot more of excuse me, it's going to be a lot more grappling and taking people to the ground. So it just depends on where you go. But ultimately, I would encourage, Bruce, here's the crazy part. Just like I don't have a favorite Bible translation, I don't have a favorite style of martial art. I'm sorry, guys. 1 second. I need to get some water. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I would suggest learning a lot of them. That's what I've done, because you're going to need to know footwork. You need to know stance, pacing, distancing, a whole bunch of different things that you may not always learn in one specific gym. Goodness. Sorry, guys. 1 second. I was singing a lot earlier, so just give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Hopefully we get this on track here. So learning to fight, and this is actually going to kind of come up in the situation with this pastor that's been going viral. This pastor out of Louisiana named Tony Spells, who got into an altercation with his neighbor and showed that he has never been trained to fight. And if he has been trained to fight, he was trained poorly, or it's been a long time and he's forgotten his training, because this was one of the worst. Even though he quote unquote won the fight, put a little beat down on this guy, on this younger kid, he still was like this. I thought I was watching two gay men fight. Like this was the worst technique I'd ever seen in my life. Like two cross dressers fighting at the end of a show because one of them didn't win best cross dresser. Like it was some of the worst techniques, some of the least proficient, least awareness, least bodily control. His emotions were all out of control. So any good, respectable gym that's going to teach you martial arts, they're going to teach you self-awareness, how to position your body, how to be, you're learn over time what your body should be doing, how it should be feeling, how you should be in a state of awareness and calmness going into an engagement, not anger and rage. And so this is a big factor, I would say, in choosing the instructor that you allow to teach you how to fight. If they're teaching you how to be the aggressor, and if it's kind of like, it's a modern version of the old Karate Kid trope of Cobra Kai, no mercy, sweep the leg, Johnny, get in my body bag. No, you don't want to be in a situation like that, right? You want to be in a situation where you're being taught a sense of respect for the other person and for yourself and how you handle yourself in a fight. Because the law matters. The law will come into play in our current society. Okay. So I do recommend learning a variety of learning about what martial arts is. It's not just simply how to throw a punch or how to kick or how to snap an elbow. It's not just simply that. There's your foundational, just like we learn, the front of our Bible to understand the rest of it. That's our foundation. You would want to learn the foundations of how to position your body, your weight distribution, your stances, your pacing, your distance. This is all stuff that is also extremely, extremely important when you get into an altercation. And some of the stuff that we're going to look at in this altercation that's on the news with this pastor, he didn't do none of that. He didn't know none of that stuff. So this is why it looked very odd and awkward and out of control. And I'm glad that no one died, because someone could have easily died with what was happening in this little altercation. Krav Maga, I've never personally taken it. I've had other people to take it. I've heard good and bad about it. Again, I think it really depends on the teacher. I was told that they do a lot of fast attack knife defense, which maybe that's a bad misrepresentation of it. The point is, I've never officially taken a class through it. So I would just, again, if they're going to teach you the basics, like I just explained to you, it could be helpful to you. But sometimes, even if you strike someone 10 times in 5 seconds and hit pressure points, it may not matter, because that dude's bigger than you. He's twice as big as you. He's got twice as much fat in between his skin and his pressure point. So you may not, do any damage to him whatsoever. And it's extremely hard. Like, again, I'm just kind of going off of what people have told me about Krav Maga, and what little I've seen about it from the few videos I've watched, but I've never officially taken a class. So if they're going to teach you how to properly position yourself, to hold yourself, to maintain self-control while in a fight, which is a part of your character and discipline of most martial arts, then sure, hopefully they, hopefully it'll be efficient for you, but I would learn as many as possible. Okay, guys, so there's a few of you in here. Let's go ahead and let's watch a little quick news article, just kind of reviewing what we see from this this article that's gone viral, this story. And we'll have some commentary for it. Again, if you guys want to call in and talk about this, the link is in the video description and live chat.
Central Pastor Tony Spell today defending his actions 1 day after his arrest on battery charges after an alleged attack of a 20-year-old neighbor. News 2's Leah Williams got the pastor's version of what led to Tuesday's blows.
This new video shows a man who deputies identify as Pastor Tony Spell yelling.
Right off the bat, what do we see, guys? We see a guy backing away with his cell phone. And we see the pastor looking like Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead, walking across the street, pursuing the guy backing away, filming him with the cell phone. If there's ever been a circumstance where you feel like you're being set up, this is what it looks like. Where the guy holding the cell phone, he's not bulking, he's not flexing, he's not coming after you, he's not brandishing a weapon. He's filming you with no shoes on. The guy doesn't even have shoes on, and he's filming you coming across the street while he's yelling, being out of control and yelling. If you were to watch this without all the commentary, and because this is what happened to me, by the way. I watched this, I saw this video in a scroll, didn't read the comments, didn't read the description or anything, didn't know what the video was, didn't have a banner at the bottom saying a pastor defends himself or responds for battery charges. None of that stuff. I just saw the video by itself with no sound. I thought the pastor was the aggressor. I thought, oh, here's another video about some guy who's backing away trying to film him, and there's someone aggressing upon him as a bully. That's clearly, obviously, there's more context to this. We'll talk about it. But this is, you're being, if someone is antagonizing you and then starts backing away and starts filming you, you're being baited. Don't fall for this. You're being baited. They're going to sue you. They're trying to entrap you. They're trying to get a rise out of you to the point where they want to take legal action against you. Are his other out of control occupants of his house, of this neighborhood, whether it's family or roommates or live-ins, whoever the other members are that are constantly harassing this pastor, according to the story anyway, right? That's the story, is that the neighbors for 6 years have been harassing this pastor, and he finally snapped and had enough. Are the other occupants of that house coming out to try to jump him? Are they swinging? Are they throwing rocks at him? Are they? No, it's just a dude out here by himself with no shoes on, filming him backing away. That is not a good look. When a judge sits before this and looks at it, that's not a good look at all. Okay. So let's just keep listening.
It sounds like I'll break your neck while charging across the street at a 20-year-old neighbor who he'd been feuding with for years. Spell claims he was repairing a church bus when he heard the 20-year-old yelling and threatening his family from across the street.
He said, Tony?
He was
Guys,
repairing a church bus when he heard the 20-year-old yelling.
Look at this. Where is the property? It's got to be on the far left over here by what looks to be some sort of building or electrical box. Where is Pastor Spell's property that he ran across? He ran across a 4-lane highway with a massive median. Are you telling me that this guy's been yelling across the 4-lane highway or road with median for years with this loud traffic, and the pastor is still irritated by this? Look, I'm not saying, look, I get it. If he truly did yell out some of the things that the pastor claims he yelled out about R-wording his family and unaliving his family, yeah, that's a threat to take seriously. You should have probably tried to get the law enforcement involved. They claimed they did try to get the law enforcement involved, but law enforcement wasn't doing anything. Okay, guess what? Film the threats. Film the threats. If this has been happening for 6 years, is that enough time for you to film these threats? If they're verbally claiming they're going to do something to you? I'm seeing an emotional reaction from the pastor. I'm not seeing a calculated, measured. Why even leave your property? They got stand your ground law in Louisiana. They got constitutional carry in Louisiana. Why are you leaving your property to chase down someone screaming at you from across a massive road? I mean, this is like 30 yards away. The barefooted man with the cell phone is not presenting an imminent threat of death or bodily harm. So that's just the first thing that pops out to me right away.
And threatening his family from across the street.
He said, Tony, I'm going to rape your wife. I'm going to rape all of your grandchildren. And he said, the next time you go out of town, I'm going to kill them. And what the F are you going to do about it?
One day after his arrest on second-degree battery charges, Pastor Spell went on to claim that church members were also called racial slurs by the neighbors in the past.
I have a duty and an obligation to protect them.
The fight, described by the pastor as the product of years of tension between the church and the family across the street identified as the Sherwin family.
Bro, did you see that? Pastor's running through the church lawn to get to the main highway, to get across the street. Bro, that's not a good look for the pastor. Watch this. Dude is running across. It's very quick. And that, by the way, that move right there where he's twisting his head, like this, it looks like something straight out of WWE. But bro, that is a death move. Like you can literally break his neck and he's done. You can break the guy's neck in 2 seconds and he's done. If this flailing body below you moved the wrong way and you had his head turned like that, you snap his neck, it's over. Now you're in jail. You're completely taken away from your family. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Captain Insano. He shows no mercy. But yeah, when you got a dude by the hair like a girl and you're hitting him like this from the other side, there's no technique that's ever taught like that in any form of martial art. This is a brawl of a person that's out of control, who's not in control of himself, who's filled with rage, and the man was running from across the way. So here's the church. Look how big this lawn is from where he supposedly was working on the church bus to run across the street. He's running down the drainage ditch to get across this. Bro, this is not going to go well. In my opinion, I'll be surprised if this guy doesn't actually get charged with something, and it sticks because of this. Look, who's filming this? The guy shouting inflammatory things is filming this. A man shouts inflammatory things to you. Does that give you the right to get in an altercation with him according to Scripture? Let me know in the comments, guys. Also, call in if you need to. We got the call in. We got the link in the video chat, pin the live chat. It's in the video description. Does Scripture allow you, with someone shouting inflammatory things to you, does it allow you to attack them? This man did not run up to have a conversation with the guy so he could be heard across the traffic. He ran over. The guy started swinging at him. He then starts swinging back. All body language, all video of this shows intent of this guy. He's lost it. He's had enough of being antagonized. He's going over there to do some whoopings, lay a whooping down on him. It's like that Roy D. Mercer. Well, how big a boy are you? I'll come over there and whoop you. You know, it's how big a boy is he? Well, he wasn't a big boy. He's a younger man. The pastor probably got 30, 40 pounds on him. But is it justified that he can go run over there and cross 4 lanes of traffic to jump into this altercation? Let me know in the comments, guys. Someone said no. The Scripture tell us that we're in a position where we can, people are shouting antagonism towards us, that we can just run to them so that we can, like this man, like some people want to go scriptural with, right? Some people would say, look, I could even play that game if I wanted. I could say, hey, Goliath for 40 days, he shouted antagonism against the Israelites. And the Israelites stood back. Goliath was an actual enemy with a history of his people, the Philistines, killing Israelites. The Philistines were in a land they were told to leave and were being the aggressors. Israel was declared by sovereign decree of the Father that the Philistines would be driven out of the land, that they were to make war against them as an enemy of Yahweh. Look, this antagonistic kid, 20-year-old with a cell phone with no shoes across the street, he's not a Philistine. It's a completely different cultural context. In our modern day, we're told that this man, like this kid filming this from this position and this angle that we're looking at right here, the kid that gets beat up, he's the guy we're supposed to pray for, we're supposed to love, we're supposed to, what? Are we supposed to let him aggress upon us and hurt us? Of course not. Are we supposed to let him okay, welcome, Arthur Brew Raids. I appreciate you. Welcome. Are we supposed to let him come into our territory? Now, if this kid had crossed the street and was coming into the parking lot where this church was, hey, stand your ground, defend your castle. You have the right to defend yourself. Like I said, it's constitutional carry. What do you guys think? Hey, Arthur Bros, thanks for the raid. You're welcome to be here. But I tell you what, as always, if you can't just comment on what we're actually talking about, but you want to change the subject to other nonsense, then Jortlandians will have to go. All right. Hey, good. I'm glad the Ortho Bros are here. Bring your commentary to this situation. Okay. Someone earlier in the chat cited, I think it was Tertullian. Quite a few people. Tertullian, Athenagorad, Mencius Felix, and Lactantius all agree with Origen that the Christians were not to join the Roman legions, that it was against what Jesus taught. That's a bigger discussion as far as military involvement, whether you believe the cause of your military is righteous or not. But at the same time, this is just a personal altercation between two men, right? This would be something that we could see covered in more something like Exodus or Numbers 35, right? Where it gives you outline descriptions for, all right, two men get an altercation, what are the circumstances? And then this is how you can judge who's the guilty party, what's going on here. Let's finish listening to this.
Family. A Sherwin family member told me off camera his family would never threaten Pastor Spell or any members of the church. He went on to call Spell a, quote, bully who gets mad when he does not get his way. Christy Sloan also lives nearby.
I was honestly appalled.
She believes both sides could be spinning their side and omitting some of the truth.
It's going to take more digging into to find out what might have really happened.
Before addressing media Wednesday,
wait, is this lady standing in front of the church? Is that the house across the street? Is this the street he ran across to get to that house over there? Are they interviewing people at the church? It's hard to say.
Digging into to find out what might have really happened.
Before addressing media Wednesday, Spell alluded to the fight in a sermon he preached less than an hour after bonding out of jail.
I fulfilled the scripture. I don't know how much recovery they're going to have, but I laid hands on the sick.
When I asked,
Bro, this is wild, bro. This is wild. Yeah. That's, to me, that's not a good look. That's not a good look, man. Like just making jokes about it. Again, if the guy had come into your church parking lot where you're working the bus, started messing with you, you're under the bus trying to fix something or whatever. He starts swinging at you, kicking at you, doing that kind of thing on your property because he's aggressed. But dude, you ran straight up to him as he's backing away. This doesn't look good, man. Doesn't look good. Hey, Ortho Bros, tell me what the official Orthodox interpretation of this event would be. I'd love to hear it. Tell me in the live chat. Actually, you could actually call in. I've got you call-in links, Ortho Bros, right here. You could tell me the official Orthodox interpretation of how how a Christian should engage in a personal altercation with an unbeliever in this world, in this world we're living in. Now, if you don't understand that he's being tongue-in-cheek about this fight, that's why I'm saying it's not a good look. He's using scriptural language to be tongue-in-cheek about the fight, about how he won the fight. Like he's literally at the pulpit bragging about how he won a fight before he came to church. And then when you see the details of the fight, bro ain't doing that. No self-defense. This is not self-defense.
if he was making light of the situation, he had this quick reply.
We paid a large sum of money to get out of the East Baton Rouge Parish Prison so that I could be in time for church. This is a serious subject.
Leah Williams reporting now. In a statement, the Central Police Department says Pastor Spell and his wife have called them multiple times over the years. It goes on to read, only one of those incidents was actually a complaint about their neighbors. The fight is being investigated by the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, so you saw enough of the fight. You saw him aggressing across the street, the other guy backing away. Just to let you know, the guy with the cell phone backs away a lot, and then as the guy runs up to him, he swings at him a few times, and then the pastor just essentially wrestles him to the ground, mounts him, and starts girl punching him from the top. So what instigated the fight was the guys just talking trash, and the pastor came over and jumped up in his face. So the context is all there, guys. You guys just have to be abreast of the actual story in case you don't know what the actual story is. It's been going around. It's been viral. It's going around the internet today. So the reason we're having this discussion is, can a Christian, what are the lines for a Christian getting involved in an altercation? Okay. Is it our responsibility? Is it our duty? Are we defending people if someone is shouting threats at us and then we go and physically harm them? Is that, I'm anxious to hear from the people in the live chat. I'm anxious to hear from anyone listening. You have a live chat call-in link. You can call in. Where's the line that you see Scripture describe? Okay, so let's go to an actual Scripture that does speak directly on what it looks like, how God views two men fighting. And what are some of the parameters? Okay. So in Numbers 35, verse 16, if anyone strikes a person with an iron object and kills him, he's a murderer. The murderer must surely be put to death. Or if anyone has in a hand a stone of deadly size and he strikes and kills another, he's a murderer. The murderer must surely be put to death. If anyone has in his hand a deadly object of wood and he strikes and kills another, he's a murderer. The murderer must surely be put to death. If anyone, let's go back. If avenger of blood is to put the murderer to death when he finds him, he's to kill him. That's a whole different conversation as far as societal retribution in ancient Israel. But let's just look at the details of the interaction, okay? Verse 20, likewise, if anyone maliciously pushes another or intentionally throws an object at him and kills him, or if he in hostility strikes him with his hand and he dies, the one who struck him must surely be put to death. He's a murderer when the avenger of blood finds murderers to kill him. But if anyone pushes a person suddenly without hostility, or throws an object at him unintentionally, or without looking drops heavy stone that kills him when he's not an enemy and did not intend to harm him, then the congregation must judge between the slayer and the avenger of blood according to these ordinances. So what is the intent? The intent is to harm here, okay? The hostility is the determining factor for the harm, for the aggression, one way or another. So what do we think here? Who is hostile in this situation? Clearly both of them. Do you guys think just one of them was hostile? Do you think both of them were hostile? This involves both weapons. There was no weapons in either person's hand except for their fists, and I would not classify any of those guys' fists as weapons. But also there's the idea of pushing or striking, okay? In hostility, if he strikes or pushes someone with his hand, just with his hand, and he dies, okay? So if that pastor had, like, this is a scrap, okay? They're right next to flowing traffic, which strangely enough didn't slow down at all, which is kind of funny to me. They're right next to flowing traffic. Do you know how easily one of them could have been thrown in front of a car or pushed in front of a car? Or the pastor trying to hit him, kicking, punching, trying to trip him up as he runs away and he stumbles 3-4 feet, falls into one of the lanes of traffic. And then suddenly the pastor hasn't being charged for manslaughter, going to jail for the rest of his life. So this is a concept where if there truly is a situation where the people are they're living across the church and they're shouting horrible things to people that are across the church, well, there's a couple incredible ways you can take care of that. Okay. For one, you could put up a privacy fence. For two, you could if you're truly worried about them breaching and aggressing upon your property to do the things that they're shouting in antagonism towards you, these physical threats of harm, you can get up security guards from members of the church. You can get up actual guard dogs. You can put up a privacy fence so that they're just shouting at the fence and they don't see anybody walking to their cars. There's a ton of different things you put up security cameras that instantly alert you on your cell phone the moment someone breaches the property. You could put up a wide array of defensive things for that property. But the moment the pastor leaves his property and goes and seeks out the altercation, we've got a different situation. And the intent matters The hostility matters. These are the things that the judges would be judging by, right? The judge would determine, okay, what was the hostility? What was the intent? What's going on here? Was there a weapon involved? How badly was someone hurt? The idea for eye for an eye was an actual legal term for retribution of financial compensation. So in the same way, we're going to see this pastor potentially, I don't think it's going to go well for him personally in court. I'll be surprised if it does. I think he's probably going to have to pay the hospital bills for this guy, right? Even though, I get it, even though the kid was shouting incredibly, if the pastor's statement is true and the kid truly was shouting incredibly inflammatory and threatening things, the judge is still going to find that the pastor was not acting in self-defense of his property or of any other person, but sought out with hostility and intent to harm the other person. And the harm he did inflict upon him, he'll be told he needs to pay his hospital bills. And look, there could even be a restraining order filed between one of the two, which should have been actually filed already. A protective order, restraining order. If this guy truly had been shouting and other members of his family or household have been shouting these types of things, as the story goes right now, until we get all the information. So far, the story goes, for 6 years, this family and these people living at this house have been shouting inflammatory things toward the pastor and those of people at the church. And if that's truly the way it worked out, okay, why wasn't a protective order already put up so that at least the police could be aware of, hey, there's someone that's threatening our life, calling for our death and our demise. And then that way, if a protective order is in place, it forces the cops to get involved. And it's no longer just someone's shouting things at me from across the street. So, Brandon, do you have an actual opinion? Do you have an actual intelligent opinion about this situation? I just went over the scriptures, which is the word of God. And I already asked earlier, I'm still waiting. I didn't see anybody in all the Ortho Bros that are suddenly here. I didn't see anybody in the live chat. Ortho Bros, where are you at? I don't see anybody in here telling me the official Orthodox position on who's right or wrong in this situation. How does a Christian engage in a physical altercation in the church era, the post-Israel church era? What's the official Orthodox declaration and interpretation of this? I'm waiting. Let me know. Bruce, what would I do? I've not had someone yell these physical things to me, but I have been in altercations where people have been yelling and shouting, wanting to come. Look, I would wait till they swing first, typically, or at least flinched first. Cock that shoulder as if they're about to swing, okay? Because I have trained martial arts for many years, and so I don't know if I'm 46 now, so I can't make this statement now. But back in the day, my foot was just as fast as any guy's jab. Okay, so I could snap you right in the face with my foot before you could, get off a 2-piece combo on me. So I would wait for that shoulder to flinch before I would move. But the point is, that means there's a whole bunch of other scenarios going on. If someone's shouting aggressively and coming at you like they're going to attack you, I'm looking for weapons in their hands. I'm looking to try to determine what's around me situationally. Am I going to be backed into a corner? How many people are there? If I take this dude down first, who's popping up next? Who's feeling froggy? There's a whole bunch of things you got to be aware of, and these are things you train to be aware of. And of course, you're not in those situations. You're not throwing the melee of limp-wristed punches that we saw from this pastor. You're going to be going for specific placements with kicks and punches, so that you take people down as fast as possible, because there's possibly his friends also coming after you simultaneously. So there's a lot going on. But ultimately, I would not try to swing as long as possible until they make the first move. But I'm also not running over to them. Okay, I'm not running over them trying to just intentionally get them to swing at me. So there's a big difference here. There's a big difference. Ike Yashiro, what's going on? Can you hear me?
Shalom, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's going on? Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to share some of my thoughts on it. Um, it's honestly kind of sad to see, especially considering he's a pastor and a leader. Um, I mean, I don't think we're called to fight, rather we're called to peace, and we don't see any of the disciples acting that way except for Peter. And when Peter did, he was corrected by Christ himself, right? And it wasn't like he was defending. It was more like he heard some things which were unpleasant, and then when the other guy was trying to walk away, he pursued after him. Um, which I just think as a pastor, you need to set up, especially as a pastor, you need to set a better example than the one he set. Especially the joking afterwards and using scripture to kind of like make light of what he did as if it was like some kind of pleasant thing that just it's sad to see. It really is just sad to see. And I think I was put the verse in chat, but Exodus 21:18 talks about what to do if you get into a fight with somebody else. And it says that you're supposed to pay them for their loss of time and for their any loss that they have.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put that on screen
That's
for us.
all I want to say.
Yeah, if a man strikes quarreling and one strikes the other with the stone or fist, and he doesn't die but is confined to the bed, the one who struck him shall go unpunished, as long as the other man get up and walk around outside with a staff. Nevertheless, he must compensate the man for his lost work and see he's completely healed. This is the eye for an eye concept. That's where that term comes from, is that if he's missing a week of work, that's the the financial compensation for the injury that's been done, which is still the same stuff that's enacted in legal code today in the United States, at least. But yeah, I agree with you. Look, there's plenty of examples in scripture where people defend the victim against the unrighteous. They defend their nation against aggressors, enemy aggressors, warring armies that are enemy aggressors. This is just two dudes, So this is like, I've been seeing a lot of people use Old Testament concepts, and I'm going, wait a minute. Like God's law already explains one man versus one man and what the scenarios are and what we're talking about, right? This is why I pulled up the Numbers passage.
Yep.
Is there hostility? Is there intent involved? Or is it just an accident? Oh, like he accidentally pushed somebody and then he got hurt. There's a difference there, right? If you're watching this particular altercation and you see as a judge and you're trying to review the tape, right, that's being brought forward by the prosecutors or by the defense, you would say, okay, both of these men are antagonizing, but unless you've got the antagonism of the actual neighbors that lived across the street from the church, unless you've got their antagonism on camera previously and all the actual words that you can clearly hear them saying, in this particular little video, it doesn't look good for the pastor. It looks like he's the aggressor. So I get it. We're called to defend the victim, the widow, the poor, the orphan. We're called to stand up against unrighteousness, and we should do that. But at the same time, you've got to be wise about how you do that, right? We don't just run into a battle that hasn't started yet. That's my understanding, right?
I entirely agree. We're called to preserve and protect, not aggress. The only time we ever do is if we're called to by Yah or by God. And I don't think somebody saying some, even if they were very horrible things from what he said in his statement, what I heard, pretty bad things, but at the same exact time, I mean, Paul was there stoning Stephen, and look how Stephen's righteousness changed, Paul's perception and things, and so much so that even Luke wrote that down and put it as a big part in the book of Acts, right? So we don't know how we could change somebody by our example. And so that's all I want to say. But Shalom, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, brother. Yeah, it's one of those things to where, are we a lot of people are pacifists in modern Christianity, and I don't think that's the right stance either. I think there's definitely a dividing line. They'll point to Christ, say, well, Christ, look, you told Peter to put away his sword. Christ didn't, get into physical altercations. He cleared out the money changers at the temple, braiding the ropes and whipping at people. But you don't see Christ being brought before the Sanhedrin because he physically harmed somebody. Okay. Sure, he may have scared them and caused them to flee because he's whipping at them. He didn't whip them specifically. The bigger issue here is Christ was sent to become a lamb who's led to the slaughter silently. He wasn't sent here to be the victorious king that he is the second time he comes. So there's a big difference in context with Christ. And then also you have to consider the concept, the cultural context of, sure, Peter, you can pull out your sword and swing at anybody you want, but the Romans are going to come in with justice. They're going to come in with what they viewed as justice. And because you're in the land of your enemies, the biblical context is they were being controlled by their enemies due to their rebellion as a nation. So they were about to be scattered, but they were already being controlled by the enemies. This is one of the curses of the covenant, is that you're being controlled by your enemies. And then you'll be invaded, conquered, and dispersed into the land of your enemies. You lose your theocratic autonomous control as an actual people over the nation of Israel. And that is what all Christians are today. We're scattered throughout all the world, subject to the rules of the governances by which the land that we live in, which by biblical definition, we're all scattered to the land of our enemies. So we cannot just act like this is the days of King David and just run over and start exacting justice on people who speak against Yahweh, or exactly who speak possibly even against our personal family. It just doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. And if you disagree, I'd like to hear your well-articulated and controlled thoughts. Yeah, I know that they still haven't answered the question. The question is, what's the official interpretation of the Orthodox Church, since they want to come in here? And I hope you're watching, Jim Bob. I wish you would call in, Jim Bob. This is your moment. Call in. Tell me what's what. Show me exactly the exact interpretation by the Eastern Orthodox Church that you adhere to. Call in and say, hey, let us know exactly what the official church doctrine is on how a Christian should handle himself in a physical altercation. What are the scenarios and circumstances by which he's justified, and what are the ones by which he's not justified? I'd love to hear it. Yeah, I hear you. To watch vids. Don't start no stuff, won't be no stuff. But as you start, I'm going to finish what you started. As the old saying goes. Okay, White Cloud's calling in. What's going on? How you doing, brother?
How's it going?
Good. Good. What are your thoughts here?
Limitations, skills, abilities, and mindset. So I trained for many years and was a teacher for many years. And people train for confrontation, but they don't train before or after confrontation. In other words, purpose matters. And you have to understand and be willing when you enter into confrontation, because you never know what's going to happen. You can prepare with the best of them. And I trained with really high martial artists for many years. Of course, anybody you talk to is going to say that, and they'll puff themselves up really big and say, I was great, whatever. But no, when you enter into confrontation, it could be the last thing that you do.
Yeah.
Is it wise? What's more important? Taking care of your family and having one more day to maybe speak truth and reach people, or throwing away freedom, life? You know, when you enter into that confrontation, you assume the risk that nothing else was an option. In other words, you know.
Real quick, White Cloud, do you feel like, did you see the video of what we're reviewing?
I saw little bits and pieces of it.
Did you see where he had him? Did you see where he had him mounted? He was twisting his head from behind.
I missed that.
Okay.
I saw the part where he was across the way and ran all the way over to him. You know, as a teacher for many years, I would say you do everything you can to avoid conflict at all costs
Yeah.
because it's so dangerous. And
Mhm.
I have heard you've brought up many good points. You've raised many good points, and you have touched on many good things. But in a couple things I would slightly disagree with in terms of maybe a fist not being deadly, but
Well, I
that's
just said
never.
these two men's fists were not deadly.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and
Again, you should watch the video, brother. They're hitting like this.
yeah. I get you. I understand, but
And this, by the way, do you see this on the screen?
yes,
So this is actually right before he turns the guy's head,
yeah,
like
terrible.
it's a movie, like he's about to snap his neck. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's another good point because people become what they see, they become what they hear. So if your movies are full of it's all like John Wick movies, and you want to be the tough guy, and it's all about breaking people's necks or doing whatever it is that they're doing, and it's glorifying murder in terms of vengeance. You've got all that imagery in your head ever since we were little. I mean, I remember going and watching The Last Dragon, Barry
Bro.
Gordy's Last Dragon.
Bro, I got kicked in the mouth after The Last Dragon right by my older brother in the parking lot.
See? So,
And I wasn't showing off. I was trying to be Bruce Leroy.
yeah. So you become what you see, you become what you hear. And that's the greatest thing that the Bible does for us. It makes us different. But I still struggle with this. Believe me. But when you assume the risk and everything gets thrown out, now that's a whole nother issue, because if you're lucky enough to not get killed or severely injure the other party, then now you have legal issues. And depending on the state and where you live and the legality, all that involved, that's a whole nother mess. You could be in jail for 6 months just waiting to find out that you're going to be in jail for 2 years, just waiting to find out that you're going to be in jail for 5 years, and you're going to spend $300,000 in legal fees that you don't have, just because you got offended. So you've got to be. I would just say be very careful, and it's very hard. For just small example, I had a neighbor that literally lived right next door to me, and he just recently got married. They're gone now. They moved. But he just got married to this female, and he was violent and brutal towards her. And one night we got home, walking up to the door, and he was going to hit her in the face with a metal pry bar / crowbar. It was about 1.5 feet long with a handle on it. And if he would have hit her with it, he would have killed her. And, I was too far away to get to her. He was in an elevated position. I took about 4 steps, and he saw me and he freaked out and ran inside because he was scared because he got caught. But boy, I still have a protective order against him. So truth be told here, I have a CCI injury, which is a cranial cervical injury, which means my skull slides and shifts and my neck slides and shifts underneath it. So if I get out of bed funny, I could be in the hospital. Or if I turn my head wrong, I'm having problems. Like earlier, I couldn't see. It's like when I have all kinds of problems. So the last thing I want to do is just get into a fight.
Yeah.
So this is something that I'll bring up is it necessary? Are you going to save life, prevent damage? Are we supposed to protect the weak? Okay. 2, is it worth it? Can you go without seeing your family? Is it more important to be a father or be a 2-second hero because you see it on television? And even though people are untrained and they're sissies or whatever we want to call them, and we make fun of them, they can still hurt you and cause damage because they're untrained and they don't know. Just in the case of this video that you just showed me, he wants to break this guy's neck, not knowing, I'm assuming, he doesn't understand the damage that this quote unquote move can do.
Yeah.
But it's natural, right? Men are going to fight, and that's why it's in the Bible. If this happens, do this. So I would just say we've got to be careful first.
Yeah. I remember, being in many different martial arts settings throughout my life, we always viewed the most dangerous person in the room was the white belt. was the untrained person, right? Because it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke, okay? Because they could kick
Yeah.
you in the balls, or they could
Yeah.
try to actually, do a wild technique that they can't really control, and so you'd have to watch the white belts fighting much more than the black belts, make sure that they didn't hurt each other, um, and so yeah, I. But when it comes to this particular altercation here, yes, you're right. Two untrained men can still end each other's life, or one of them can end the other one's life, even with bad technique and no form and no power, because that is the nature of the clash and the collision of fighting. I get that for sure. I also 100% agree that the idea of, if you are a father and you think you're doing this to protect your family, then why are you putting yourself in a position to where you may be, like, you're not even thinking about the legal ramifications, where you could be removed from the situation, to where now who is, if these people truly were trying to stalk your family, and you're trying to put yourself in jail so they can then retaliate on your family while you're not there,
Right.
like, it
So,
doesn't make a lot of sense.
and now we run up on the point of men are untrained. So we should be trained, and we're not. Well, I say we lightly, but you know, if you don't know what the law is, and you're in trouble. If you don't have legal reason, right? If you do something, you have to go to court, and what they do is you have to justify your actions. Are your actions justified, no matter what happens? And a lot of times you have to agree to cause. You're like, yes, I was the one that caused damage to this person. Well, now you have to prove that your actions were justified. So usually, in my experience and understanding, the state will bring experts in, because they'll have state expert witnesses, use of force witnesses, domestic violence, mental experts, all this type of stuff, and they will throw everything at you because they want to charge somebody, and somebody's at fault. So nobody's your friend at this point, and you're in trouble. So in terms of training in martial arts, I saw that you were answering a gentleman's question earlier about what martial art would you recommend. I would just, if I throw my 2 cents in there, all martial arts benefit, okay, but all of them are different purpose. They're all set up for different reasons. So you have to recognize what you're trying to go after and what you're trying to learn first off. And if you're not intelligent enough, and I'm not saying that people, if you don't understand what that is, then you just need to educate yourself and look at what the arts are. In other words, you could do a grappling art, but if you do a grappling art, everybody's going to want to come in and get real close, and they're going to want to hug. They're going to want to constrict, control. They're going to want to do small joint manipulation, chokes. They're going to specialize in joint locks, takedowns, throws, because they want to get to the ground and they want to do control, quote unquote, and try to manage a fight that way. Well, the problem with that, and there is knowledge there, and it does help, but the problem with that is, what do you do before that? So you have to have an in-between. So now, but what if a person has a knife? You don't really want to grab onto them and try to throw them down and control them if they have a knife, because you're going to get stabbed 45 times before you can hug them to death. You know what I'm saying? To hug them into a submission.
Even if you were to wrap around them with the rear naked choke and you're submitting them, within that 7 seconds before they pass out, they get your liver, they get your eye, they can stab all over you.
Knife strikes, you can land 5 to 7 knife strikes in a second if you're trained, and untrained people are usually anywhere between 3 and 4.5 a second. So I was fortunate enough to train knife systems, and I've got other experiences. But the second thing is tool arts. Arts that use tools are going to benefit you more than empty hand focus. It's not to say that one is better than the other, but if you're learning how to use sticks, knives, and swords, you're going to be learning how to deal with distance weapons. You're going to be learning how to deal with edged weapons, blunt force weapons for striking. Even blunt force weapons for striking can, compound fracture bones. You can get your bones dusted. You can have cranial fractures, and it's just with one hit. And most people are uneducated in the reality of weapons use. So Some of those arts might be of interest to people, but that would be like a, Indonesian Penjak Silat type stuff. Some of the weapons based arts, Philippines, things like that. If you're doing, even soft weapons like sashes and belts, right? Anything that you can use, but any art that can actually teach you the difference in how weapons work and how the body actually works and moves. Krav Maga, if my understanding, is an Israeli-based system, and it kind of deals with some of that in my experience, but it's a little on the mixed mush side of things.
Mhm.
I personally would not recommend it, but as you quoted, or as you said, earlier, you said, well, it depends on the teacher.
Yeah.
Focus is a big deal. I trained for a very long time to defend my family or defend me based on a very bad childhood, but all it did was make me mean, angry, and brought out more of the broken in me than I ever wanted. And I was an instructor teaching people through that broken lens. And I can't ever fix that or repair that. So it's very important that you do that you kind of vet the instructor and see who they are and what they are. And that's why the biblical principles are so important. But if you try to stay out of the situation as much as you can, try to avoid the conflicts. If you learn to recognize impending danger and train yourself in survival techniques and recognition and evade escaping and just kind of understand reality, not movies. Just you want to educate yourself as much as you possibly can. From starting a fire, buckling your seatbelt is self-defense. Not running across the street and trying to rip a guy's head off because he's yelling at you. Staying back and calling the police and saying, "Hey, I have a disturbance at my..."
Right. Yeah.
That's self-defense.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I thought was, okay, so the pastor watches this guy across the street with a cell phone shouting antagonism while filming him. I'm like, Pastor, are you so unaware of modernity and the world around you that you don't realize this is a person trying to bait you and film you doing something illegal? My first response would have been, okay, get your cell phone out to record him because he's clearly up to something, trying to antagonize you, and don't actually run to him. Like, unless he's aggressing upon you coming into your property, there's a bigger issue here, right?
Oh yeah.
Now, and of course, there's always the guy in the live chat right now. There's always the guy watching this that's going to say, "Oh, that sounds a little weak, Sean. Go handle your business." Right? Well, look, if you actually know how to fight and you know what it means to handle your business, like, you can just punch a dude and kill him accidentally.
Yes.
Right? And this is a serious issue. So again, if you've not trained how to subdue somebody and then wait for the authorities to come get him, then I don't suggest you get in a fight and look for a fight, because you could very easily, even if your punch isn't even that strong, but you do punch him and he wobbles and falls and hit his head on a rock, you're still going to jail for manslaughter.
So in an instant there, there's an untrained person and then there is a trained individual. So in some cases, in some states, in some laws, even if you go to a martial art class just once in your life and all you do is push-ups, if the law finds out about it, you're a trained fighter because you visited a school.
Right.
You've got to be careful. And when
that was part of my joke earlier about none of these hands that we're watching in this video are considered weapons, but there are actual people's hands that are considered weapons.
Yeah. And whether you're trained or not, let's say you do get into the confrontation and you've trained 25 years. You're the great supreme grand super poobah master of your whatever, because everybody loves titles. And you go to do this technique you've done 53,000 times in the classroom. And you go to do that, but he moves and you hit him in the throat instead and you crush his windpipe. Well, the windpipe right here, you can't fix that.
Right.
It's like fiberglass. If you hit it good enough, it will shatter and they can't fix it. So
12 pounds of pressure on the throat. That's all it takes.
So And I almost ripped a guy's throat out once. And I was helping security guards. And I said, it's a bad deal, right? But
Yeah.
you just don't want to be in it, because maybe he moves left and you hit him, and now you were doing the right thing, but you're still going to jail. They don't, like, you have to prove that your actions are justified, and it's hard to do. So
Yeah, that's what I was saying about.
With this pastor, he should go to jail. He should be in jail at least for a while and think about his actions. It's sickening to hear him misquote scripture and use that as a
playful boast after the fight that he won the fight. Yeah,
it's disheartening.
Yeah, my bigger issue here is that a man who believes that he's defending his family, this is one of the most unwise ways to defend your family. Okay?
And that's due to untrained man, and he's listening to emotions instead of what what I mean? And that's hard. I've been in it, but
I've stood there and had multiple dudes shouting antagonism at me, hoping that I would throw first. I've been in those situations too. Yeah, absolutely. I remember I was in high school, and I was a sophomore, and some of the seniors found out that I've been taking martial arts for a long time, and so they wanted to like
right at you,
push me into a situation to see me do something, and so they riled up these other kids to try to come fight me. And I was trying to de-escalate, because I knew that these kids that were a year younger than me didn't know how to fight. And I was trying to de-escalate. And I remember this other kid walks in, because it was after lunch and everyone had some time to sit around and talk and BS. And so this other kid walks in, and they see these two dudes trying to stare me down, waiting for me to do something. And he's like, "What's going on? Is Sean about to get in a fight?" And then everyone's like, "No, well, these other kids haven't done anything yet." And so this guy who knew me, he starts laughing so loud that these kids wanted to fight me. And he's like, "Please fight him, please." Like they wanted, and I wasn't some master martial artist or nothing. I'm saying this is high school, right? But I could definitely handle myself. And my friends had seen me training, and they knew, and I had showed them stuff privately. And we used to actually have boxing matches with 6-ounce gloves in the backyard. And we would just do this for fun, right? So they knew, and he was wanting to see me fight. I've been in those situations and still was able to de-escalate without people getting hurt, without punches being thrown, kicks being had, that kind of stuff. And then as an adult, I've been in different situations as well. Sometimes I actually had to defend myself one time and kick a dude who was trying to force his way into my home. And he ran away. And then then I called the cops. And so after the cops showed up, guess what the cops told me? "Oh, well, if you'd let him actually come into your home and then beat him to death, we wouldn't do anything to you."
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going like, that is possible, but I don't want that on my heart, my conscience. Right.
Right.
So there is because all of my martial arts training taught me, you have to have self-control. You have to have a sense of integrity, and just trying to be in a position to where you can show your dominance because you're being disrespected. Guys, we're going to be disrespected as Christians. This is not a situation where we just get to run around and show everybody that we're Rambo because somebody stepped on our toes, right? This isn't the hood. This isn't a street gang.
And it will get dangerous. It will get worse. And there are people that just do not care whether they hurt you, kill you, or die themselves hurting you. I trained my wife for quite some time in the knife, and she had no idea. And 1 second, and she just had tears in her eyes. She was like, "Oh no," because she didn't realize that she was so vulnerable. Because everybody has this idea of what they are, or that they're safe, and they're not. It's an illusion.
No.
Safety is an illusion. You kind of are on your own in a lot of ways. You are responsible for yourself, but there are people that do not care whether they hurt animals and their wives and come after you. In case of my neighbor is a good example. He tried to fight me after. I just put my hands up and was like, hey, I was doing bad. I've been walking with a cane for probably a year at least now. And I was just like, dude, I just put my hands up. Like, I got nothing,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna run to it because and also, like, I'd have to say, can I fight? Yeah, I can fight better than anybody I know. But that does not mean I want to go hurt that guy. And maybe it's sad, but maybe it's the war in me, the spiritual war. I don't want to hurt him either.
Right.
I don't want to hurt him either. But he put me in a position where I'd almost have to.
Some people will quote the Psalms and say, well, it's the Lord who trains my hands for war, right? In this very grandiose statement of, oh, okay, yeah. So, yeah, if I'm fighting in the Lord's army specifically in ancient Israel, then that's one thing to consider. But then if I even were to take someone who was the king of Israel fighting in the armies of God against the enemies of God, like King David, there was a moment where he slayed people on the battlefield until he was exhausted, right? And then Ishni-Benibab and his brothers saw that and tried to come attack him. There's other moments where even when he's being hunted and he could have killed Saul in an instant, instead he showed restraint, he showed proper respect, he knew the situational awareness of what was happening. And even though without cause and unrighteously he was being hunted, he still chose righteousness in that regard and was blessed for that.
Yeah, so this is the only answer I have is we got to look to scripture, and then everybody's going to argue about what it means and show their reasons and misquote this and whatever. But as you could say do as little as possible, but that doesn't always work. Sometimes, man, you're right there. The Father put you there. You're the one that has to help. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, I didn't ask for this.
That's right. Yeah.
But get on it because she needs
your
help.
Like I'm not, again, I'm 46, so I'm not exactly an old man, but at the same time, I've had some instances in my life, right? So I have two different occasions where I've stopped a man from beating a woman. And in both occasions, the man was a coward.
Shame.
And did not try to attack me, but I did stop him from beating a woman, right? And that's where, it's yes, we should defend people that are helpless. We should defend. If we're in that position to where we have to stand against unrighteousness and we're the only line of that defense, okay. I just don't see those qualifiers for this particular scenario with this pastor running across the street to engage someone that's clearly out of his mind and trying to antagonize you and trying to film you, bro.
Equal, and then you brought that up again, and that reminds me of equal and opposite force, or equal force, use of force. So if he's filming him, he could just pull out his phone and film him. I mean, that's equal. I'm being silly about it, but
technically, if this has been going on for 6 years and he's been antagonizing your family for 6 years with threats against physical harm to your family, well, you need to get that. You need to get you some audio so that you can look. A lot of people saying, "Oh, how dare you appeal to the magistrates of the U.S. government? You might as well be appealing to Rome." Okay, well, Paul appealed to Rome. Okay, so look, the point is, if you don't think that the judges over you matter in whatever land you're living in, and how they evaluate, if you're not aware of how they evaluate physical altercations, then you're not moving in wisdom.
No,
you think that, no, you're not moving in wisdom. You will be put in jail, even though you're trying to defend yourself. So look, if this truly was a 6-year long situation of antagonism by these people, and they've been shouting these types of racial slurs and or physical threats of violence to you, why can't you just take out your phone across the street as the cars don't pass when you can actually hear him? Oh, okay, record him, get it on, gets your proof. Right. Now then, if he wants to come across the street and do violence to you, well, now you've got all this justification. He's aggressing into your particular property. You've already got him shouting physical threats of harm on camera. And then if you have to do something to him at that point, but I just, this is like
it's just failure, all around failure.
Yeah. This really reminds me of the people in, what was it? Was it the Battle of AI, where like they lost, and then they didn't consult the Lord, and they just wanted to run back into battle. And Yahweh's like, nope, don't do that. I don't think that's the right battle. It wasn't Ai, but there's a couple instances in Judges and other books where Israel just wanted to run into battle when God said, no, this isn't the right time or the right circumstance. The wisdom's not here. Don't do it. And they ignored Yahweh and they ran into battle anyway, and they lost. And so, although this man, I'm just grateful that no one was actually killed. I'm just grateful that the dude just got beat up a little bit, and he'll probably get out of the hospital in a couple of days and be fine if he even needed truly the hospital.
And maybe the pastor in this video, maybe this will give him time to reflect on his actions and learn from it. I trained for 20 years or taught for 20 years. I started when I was 4, but I started in real martial art in about 96. And I trained till about 2014 when this happened to me. But, that doesn't mean that I'm perfect. I'm not going to knock it out of the park. I can't sit here and say, oh, this guy is a fool and a moron, because, man, I'm a fool and a moron too sometimes too. But training helps. Wisdom helps. The Bible helps. Doing as little as possible, but taking the appropriate action is important. And if you're not around wise people, if you don't have wise counsel, if you don't have wise people to confide in, if you're not trained and you're just, like I said, you become what you hear and what you see. If you're taking all that in and you think you're better and bigger than you are, and you're used to being the authority and telling people what to do, maybe you do snap and think, well, how dare you? And this gets into the pride part. And hopefully he can learn from it. But in my eyes, in my world, and how I see this, the pastor would be in jail. Certainly, because who cares if he's filming? So what? Maybe he likes buses. Maybe.
Well, I think he was supposedly the pastor was saying he was shouting he was going to violate and murder his family members. So that's what he claims triggered the aggression to go and confront him. But
well, it matters. It matters what we can prove and not what we say. And maybe that's true. How would I have handled that? I don't know, because I didn't handle that. But it is a failure regardless. And there are fantastic martial art teachers out there. If people are interested in actual training with firearms, training with weapons, training without weapons, training in, the ground arts, or, boxing and generalized American arts are more simple to find. Mine are a little different, but everything you can do will help.
Yeah. Yeah, I took boxing classes when I was younger. I was like 16. It was incredibly helpful. I took a lot of other, like Taekwondo, other martial arts after that, but the boxing was incredibly helpful to me. And I remember being in Taekwondo class going, hey, we should use our fists more.
But would you agree that trained individuals usually are not out starting the issue?
Right.
But I don't know if this is a true...
Usually,
I don't know if this is a true fact, but people say that only 1% of people are actually trained so-called martial artists. I would probably agree with that assessment just based on, what I know and what I've been through in my life. But it doesn't matter. People can hurt you all the same. If someone picks up a fork and snagged you with it, it's just the same if someone, you know what I mean? So I appreciate you doing this topic. Should Christians fight? I would say that dealing with confrontation one-on-one, that's a little different than a religious persecution. In other words, I still struggle with that. Like, can I fight? Yes. Should I? No. Especially with my injuries, I could get killed very easily. So, do I stand there and let a guy spit at me and hit me in the name because he's mocking Yeshua? And I'm no matter what, if I think, how dare you to me, then here I go with the ego thing. But if I'm thinking, well, Yeshua took it, so I should be like my teacher. So if I'm thinking of Yeshua, maybe in that moment, maybe I'm not so puffed up in myself. Maybe I don't make that mistake of responding in an evil, evil type way.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't really return evil for evil. So,
I think there's
but
definitely a fine line, because Yeshua did say take up a sword at one point. Another point he
yes,
said to Peter, but Peter was trying to interrupt what God had asked the Son to do.
right.
So I think there is a fine line of context. We have to understand what's the situation that we're in. And
Right.
it can't just be.
So yes, so spitting at you is one thing, and slapping you might be another. But man, it gets real thin on thin ice, as they say after that. And
Yeah,
if you
look,
don't,
if you get sucker punched, look, that may be the only punch he gets on me. That's fine. I'm not gonna try to kill him, but like I've constantly been saying since this story came out, it is helpful if you could do some training to learn how to subdue somebody that is trying to aggress upon you, because more than likely they don't know how to fight, and you can subdue them.
And listen, I'm not trying to say I'm an expert. I mean, I did train I taught for a very long time. I am highly ranked in a lot of martial arts, but you have to go to people who pressure test what they're teaching you.
Mm-hmm.
Not just, and I say this, you can't just be American with your stuff. You can't just have an American mindset and then just, maybe nobody understands that reference, but you've got to find real teachers. If you can't just do your stuff to somebody that's just going to let you do it. And a class environment is different from the street. So if you're doing technique in class, that's a class environment. That's instruction. Knowledge is acquired over time, right? You can be shown technique. You can be shown, okay, this is the idea behind this. You can't see that and then just walk out and be like, oh, now I know this stuff. And now you have to etch things into your mind so deep that when you have something happen to you, you still pull it out. It still comes out. So in other words, your body defends itself before you even understand that you just did what you did. That's how trained you have to be, because you don't fall to the left, right? You don't rise to this, you fall to this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The best guys in the world that go do this for a living, they do this every day.
Yeah, many years ago, this was a long time ago. It was my 20s. I was working at a restaurant, and there's this kid named Donnie, and he was constantly just, being a troll, right? He was constantly just always messing with everybody. Well, we're in the back one day rolling silverware, and he grabs a steak knife and puts it to my throat. And I had stood up to go get another, bucket of silverware type thing. And he stood up and put a steak knife to my throat. And like you say, it was an instant. I had him on the ground, knives flying. He smacks his head on the ground. I got him in the wrist bent, wrist lock. And everyone, all the other servers, like jump and rush over, because all they saw was me throwing him to the ground, right? And they thought I was aggressing upon him, right? He did admit that he put a knife to my throat, and he was crying. Like his head was hurt from slamming him on the ground. And it just happened in it's like an instant, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But everyone thought that I aggressed upon him, you know what I mean? And it was a weird, it happened in like seconds, just like a split second, you know what I mean? And so, yes, I agree with you. A person should seek out training in their local area if possible. They should seek out,
if you have to drive,
a competent teacher, not
if you
someone.
Have to drive,
sorry,
if you have to drive 4 hours to find someone that's worth it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you lived close enough, you know what I mean? I'd be not that I would just assert myself into your life, but I'd be like, hey,
I hear you. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But yeah, we could definitely share notes. But
you seek out teaching.
Like there's a jiu-jitsu place in my town. I don't think there's any like traditional karate or taekwondo place. I live in a small town in the mountains, but there is a good jiu-jitsu place here. But yeah, I would have to drive to at least an hour and a half to get to a good school.
Yeah. And techniques are not foolproof for people. So, what if the other guy, the other guy was on drugs? What do you,
Exactly.
So your pain compliance doesn't work with people who are on drugs.
Again, you got to know how to subdue them, not just strike and think that that's going to be the end of it, or you're just going to slam them to the ground and think that's going to be the end of it. You got to be able to subdue them.
Yeah, so not everything always works, and
Right.
you can't just train for 5 minutes and think you can just go do stuff. So it's an
Okay.
understanding and a lifestyle.
I gotta, sweetie, that this isn't the kind of stuff that we share in the course of this conversation. That's not a flex, baby. That's just me. That's just me being woken up from a dead sleep and almost hurting you. That's not what we want people to be thinking about in the course of this conversation. Anyway,
So
guys.
just to go off what was just brought up there, I woke up one night and went into the hallway, and I was in a different house, and there was a coat hanger in the hallway.
Yeah.
And I just woke up, walked around the corner, and I touched the bottom brace of that hanger, and I worked that hanger like a Yun Chun dummy in the hallway at 3 a.m, and I was like, oh, it's just the coat hanger. So I get it. That's funny, but you're not the only one. So.
So there's this guy in the live chat asking where you live because he's in San Antonio. This is the guy asking earlier about finding a good place to learn.
You're in San Antonio. Let me think real fast. I'm in Kansas, so
yeah, it's pretty far. It's pretty far away.
I don't have anything right off the top of my head, but a lot of my teachers are from North Carolina.
That's so hilarious. We got another channel sent a bunch of their subscribers over here to us today to kind of troll us. It's an Eastern Orthodox channel, and one of their people here saying, "Do you want to beat up Jim Bob?" Listen, guys, Lauren, go tell Jim Bob to join this call. It's pinned in the live chat. It's in the video description. Tell him to come over here on screen and join this call so that White Cloud can mog him with his beard, which is better than Jim Bob's.
Oh, this is just ragged muffin beard.
Tell Jim Bob to come get his beard mogged. How about that? All right. So, no, we love Jim Bob. We pray the best for him. We just disagree with his cult-like adherence to church fathers in the Eastern Orthodox Church. So, yeah, it's like a 13-hour drive from San Antonio to Kansas.
Yeah,
okay.
I'd have to think about that for a while. I don't have anybody off the top of my head.
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
I'm doing a show right now. You go tell him. I'm doing a show right now. I don't have his phone number anyway. I've got a lot of other YouTubers' phone numbers, but I don't have his phone number because we're not exactly friends like that. But only because of him, I would be his friend, but he doesn't. He thinks that we're somehow heretical because we don't, kiss icons and kiss his priest's hand and all that stuff, and we don't bow to the Eastern Orthodox claim of authority in secession. All right, so look, guys, we watched the video today on a pastor walking across 4 lanes of traffic plus a median to get to a guy shouting at him who's filming him with no shoes on, no weapon in his hand. The guy then swings at him, very poor swing, kind of clipped his chin a little bit, but then the pastor starts meleeing the guy, just wailing on him, gets him down, got him in a mount from the back, pulls up his head, twists his head while still hitting him and punching him, continues to hit and punch him, even though the punches probably felt like, getting hit with a feather. They didn't look like there was a lot of power behind the punches. Didn't look like there was any accuracy to them, and he definitely doesn't seem like he's holding his fist like this. It didn't seem like he's ever been really trained to make a fist and make a real punch. But it was a very odd video, but it's going viral because he's a pastor. I more than likely, if this guy wasn't a pastor, we wouldn't even be hearing about this, right? But it's also supposedly there's a lot to do with the history of this pastor and how he's seen. People are saying he's kind of a hothead anyway. But it also looks like the people that live across the street are hotheads and potentially drug addicts. So just from their actual look, right? They have all the signs of being severely either strong alcoholics or actual meth heads. But I mean, this is like World Star for pastoral edition. This is just silly stuff, but it does bring up the point of, can a Christian, what are the lines for when a Christian defends himself? Okay.
When you have to,
but does it warrant having to because someone is yelling stuff at you, because someone is yelling threats at you or verbal abuse? Does that warrant you going over there and physically hurting them? So I would say no, personally. That we are in this life, we're going to get shouted out, we're going to get called names, we're going to get mocked and ridiculed. Guys, look, if the internet was the equivalent of this guy across the street yelling at the pastor, then I would have already gone to a whole bunch of people on the internet and tried to beat him up, because of all the incredible, horrific things said to me from live chats and from comments, from debates I've done, accusations, slander, all types of horrific verbal abuse. So it's silly. It's silly to say that this guy is justified in seeking out this violence when he could have just stayed in his property and just let the guy keep shouting, and he probably would have got bored and went back in after a while. The pastor gave him exactly what he wanted. He fed the troll. So
you could almost say that maybe that was also in his heart, so that if that's in there and it exists and that was just fed, and so you know what I'm trying to say. So the heart of the individual, that's going to matter.
Mhm.
You know, you can have all the training, but if your heart is still broken, you'll still respond in a specific way. So, if this guy had a better head on his shoulders about things, or he had his mindset, that's why I said in the very beginning, limitations, skills, abilities, and mindset. If his mindset was different, you know, maybe he could have went over there with a few people instead of just by himself and said, "Hey, brother, what's going on?"
Yeah.
You know, now that can invite more confrontation, so you have to be careful. You know, you're almost, you know, in a way, when it's already there, you're kind of inviting it no matter what. So stay out of it. The police get paid for this. They deal with them. They have handcuffs and tools they use. They have firearms they have to use if he's crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Protection orders, restraining orders. So, you know, the multiple steps you can take. You want to be self-aware, right? And observant. You want to be careful. You want to try to do as least as possible, but the most responsible thing that you can do. That's important. And what does that say about us when we turn the other way and we go sour and just hate comes out? And that's what we produce, right? What does that say to his congregation now? Is that how they can act? He's an example. So right? So there's many levels of failure here that have to be addressed.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate, for sure.
Yeah. And actually, I just remember back in like 2010 was my first like eye-opening experience with the internet as well, because I was on a post from a guy that I knew. We were chatting on a post, and there were some other people on the post and this was like, it wasn't even like deep theology. It was just like a like borderline theological concept. And I'd made kind of a salient point in opposition to the other people talking. Right. And so one of the guys whom disagreed with me on this post, he decides to message me privately saying that he was going to kill my whole family. And I'm just like, what? I don't even know the guy, right? Just a rando on the internet. He didn't say it on the post that everyone was interacting on. He sent me a private message. So again, like there's all kinds of antagonists out there, right? You remember in Mark 8 or Matthew 8, the guy with Legion, he's chained in fetters. He's in the catacombs. He's put away from the people. Why? Because he's violent, right? And when Jesus walked by and the guy starts shouting antagonism, just Jesus, is Jesus like, is his first thought to be like, oh, I'm going to shut this dude up. He needs to learn some respect. I'm the son of the man. I'm the son of the Most High God. How dare he talk to me like that? No, he just walked over there and offered ministry to the guy, right? And that's the part that I would love to hear the back story of this viral story happening. I would love to hear some of the background information. As this church, like initially when I officially heard this conversation, I thought that this neighbor was living literally directly across the street from the pastor's family's house. I didn't realize this guy was across the church where the pastor, you know, ran the church. I thought it was like his personal house, right? So now is a whole different context here of like, oh, wait a minute. So these are some irate people across from your church. Has anyone ever there just said, hey, let's all just gather like by the dozens into the into the front yard of the church and just go pray for these people, right? Or has anyone ever just maybe went over there to invite them to church and just see what happens, right? Because then they're on your property, right? You can pat them down, make sure there's no weapons if you really think that they're that dangerous. But the point is, they may need to be exorcised. They may need to have a demon expelled from them. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just wondering the backstory of all this news story. What types of ministry efforts were taken before fisticuffs was taken?
Yeah, some of those things. Well, I did think of maybe the spiritual influence there, but some of those things I just don't think of. Now, in truth, my first thought a lot of times is not, hey, I should pray for this person. That's a hard place for me to get to.
You can get there.
Yeah.
Just do this. Just do this. Just write on the back of your knuckles, pray for them. So then when you pull your knuckles up, you're like, oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I gotta do something. But that's what I mean. Like I would also tell people, what is in your heart is going to come out. That's unfortunate because, like I said, when I trained all those years for war. Martial art is war art.
Right.
That's what it's for. Right.
So wait a minute. I know any mush bush, whatever mouse bush. You don't think we should pray for our enemies? Do you think we should pray for those who persecute us, who ridicule us, revile us, slander us? Do you think we should pray for them? Let me know in the live chat. If you want to hear even more cringe, how about this? When I was in Taekwondo one year, I was waiting to go up to spar. A girl sitting next to me, she wasn't going to be sparring, but she was, I don't know why she pulled out her nail polish and was doing her nails. And I grabbed her nail polish and put them on my left foot toenails. And they were like, what are you doing? I said, I'm about to leave paint on this dude's face. Because it was going to be fresh by the time I got up there to fight. So the point is, yeah, we can get real cringe here. It's okay. We're being silly. But at the same time, these are serious heart issues that we see a lot in the church. People thinking, oh, I'm justified to act like it's ancient Israel. Wait a minute. You're skipping over a lot of historical context and the fact that Yahweh has said you're in this land of dispersion and land of your enemies. So if you're going to have the wisdom of Daniel, who was in the land of his enemies, you have to evaluate where you are and realize there's some things you're not going to be able to do according to the example of King David. And there's other things you may have to do according to the example of Daniel. And to be wise in how that doesn't mean you bow to false idols. Daniel didn't. But at the same time, he knew he couldn't do everything according to the way they used to do it when they had autonomy inside of the nation of Israel. So the Bible is an incredible example for us in this world where we are surrounded by people who don't agree with our God, don't agree with our way of life, and want to cause us physical harm. The Bible has tons of examples.
Someone to bring up Abraham going after Lot, and taking the men with him to go, right? So there's a time for it, but which part is cringe? The fact that my heart wants war when you confront me? Because my first instinct is I'll rip your head right off and I'll show it to you. You know what I mean? So that fight in me is real. And so I would rather have the mindset of, oh, I need to pray and I need to do this and I need to lead people. And I don't want to enter into a confrontation if I don't need to, because I have a family to take care of. You know what I mean? Family is important. Legacy is important, right? Scripture is important. Who's going to teach the scriptures if you're not there? Someone else.
Right. Your enemy could possibly.
That's what I'm saying.
Be caring for your children if you do something stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't want that, right? So yeah. Bad deal. And so I'm cringe all day,
Yeah, this is a tough conversation with certain camps because they look. I get it. There's an aspect of me that wants to crusade. I'll be honest. There's a part of me that I have to check because I think to myself, where is the line? Why don't we just assemble and go stop the obvious evil that we see in this world? I want to do that, right? There's a part of me that wants to do that. And there's another part of me that goes, okay, I have to remember that this world is ruled by people The nations are ruled by unclean spirits. They're ruled in subservience to Satan. They're ruled by opposing forces to the ways of my God. And I have to remember how far can I go with a sense of vigilante spirit, right? And this is where you get into the concepts of the Crusades. Like people like to demonize the Crusades, but at the same time, if you understand the history, there's a strong case to be made that the early Crusades, the first and second, that were justified because you're protecting people being aggressed upon. But in modernity, if you're just living in Louisiana trying to have church and someone's shouting at you from across the street, this isn't a situation of crusading, right? If they come across the street and grab one of the children from the playground, take him back across the street, crusade all day long, right? But this is a totally different situation we're dealing with here, and it's hard for me to see people kind of lose sight with all the bravado of like, wait a minute, oh, we should do this, we should do that. This guy was justified to go shout. This guy's shouting threats at him. The pastor's justified to take his life. I've actually been seeing that literally in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and if we're not trained and we're not trained well, or if we're not trained up in righteousness, then we will respond like the world. It's coming, right? So we know what we have to fight against. But this, if I don't have a very good memory, but because of what happened to me, but I spoke to you once before, and it was just a couple of weeks ago, and I asked you the same type of a question: where do we draw the line? But it was in teaching and
yeah, it's a little bit
our brothers, right?
Yeah.
And when do we consider them not brothers? And because it is important for us to lead our families and try to, I got into it she's a friend of mine. She's 75 or so. She's been institutionalized by main church, and she doesn't understand anything I bring up and speak of biblically. And as soon as I say something she doesn't understand it, she'll use the same words, misapply them, and then we're off in a 4-hour conversation. And I don't even know my name when I'm done. It's like, oh no. And then now we're both upset, and you're right.
Yeah.
But this is all important because it's everything. So this guy failed, and he's a teacher, a preacher, pastor. He should know the word, and that should be his first turn. You should be bumped, and when you are bumped, whatever you are comes out. So if you're full of coffee and you get bumped, coffee comes out. If you're full of righteousness and you get bumped, righteousness should pour out. And this pastor, this teacher, when he got bumped, righteousness did not come out. He turned to his own pride, possibly. I wasn't there. I didn't hear this guy say, I'm going to do this to your family and whatever. But, this dude just had it. He's like, he says, done away with the consequences. He says, I don't care about the consequences. I don't care about my family right now. I care about what I'm going to do to this guy for this whatever reason. And he can justify his actions by his family or whatever he wants to do, but it's poor and it's wrong. If he wouldn't have ran across the street, none of that would have happened then. Now, there could have been an altercation after that, 10 minutes later, but if he would have stood back and just been like, I'm done, and just watch the guy, right? But as you said, everybody has cameras. You're not going to get away with anything. Everybody else has cameras. What is everybody's first reaction? They're not going to help you when a situation arises. They're going to pull out their phone and record it. So he would have had proof. This is just bad. So when he got bumped, righteousness did not spill out. Unless he I can't be in his mind, but I would say, well, he could justify it and say, well, he's threatening my family. I'm going to go stop him. Well, he's 300 feet away, unless he has a firearm, but then can you see it? And this is a whole bag of worms that no one wants to get into. But, religious persecution, a little bit different, but one-on-one confrontation, asking for it. So this pastor asked for it. Mm-hmm. He was like, I don't care. I'm going. We can't be doing that. It's a bad look. I think it's disappointing, but, especially if you are trained. And of course you could tell in 2 seconds as you've stated, no, but you know what I mean? You just swinging for the fences and doing the monkey sprawl, which there's nothing wrong with monkey, right? Monkey is good, but
yeah,
not in this case. So look, man, I appreciate this topic. Most people don't even get this far in the simplicity of truth as far as confrontation and the lack of skills that people possess. So, right. So look, falling is a skill, rolling is a skill, speaking is a skill, right? Recognizing impending dangers is a skill. What do you do? So if the better quality teacher you have, the better information you have, how you perceive that information and interpret that information and internalize it with your heart is probably going to determine how you respond when you get bumped. Mm-hmm. So if you're full of righteousness and you're full of the Father's wisdom, then hopefully that comes out. But man, I'm not batting 1,000. So I'm with every man in here that wants to pick up a sword and use it. But I struggle every day. I'm like, no, and it's not just bad people that get the brunt end of my sword. It's the people that I love in my life because of the way I grew up and because of what I was trained in. So I'm paying for it, right? So we don't want to be sharp to everybody, right? Just when we need it. You got to learn to, when to draw your sword and put it away.
Yeah.
Polish it, make it shiny, train with it so that you can use it, but you got to put that thing away. So.
Yeah, it takes some training, some discipline, some self-control. I think it's super important for us to learn. In fact, it's so funny that this came up because like I made a post just the other day talking about how I wish churches taught self-defense, personal awareness, situational awareness, and a list of other things as well. I wish that churches would engage with their audiences to teach them practical life skills. This being one of them. And here we go. Pastor gets in a fight, punching like a nanny. And I thought to myself, like, oh, well, that was a really, really apt post. I didn't know this was about to go viral and this is about to be a thing, but hilarious that it happens literally to prove my point. Like, this is why we all need to be taught this stuff. But unfortunately, a lot of churches are not focused on those types of things. They're enjoying there's other things they focus on, just put it like that. So,
so on a side note, I would ask you what you think of the martial art in general, just based on its history. Because in my understanding and stuff that I've learned, I believe that it dates all the way back to Babylon. So,
well, I would say fighting dates back to the warfare taught from Azazel to mankind before the flood.
Yes, but specifically, I believe that I can trace my stuff specifically back to Babylon and just out of that. So that always bothers me too, because I'm thinking, man, using.
Now you do know sounds like you are familiar with Eastern martial arts and how many of them are tied to worship to gods, right? Depends on where they claim they got the skill from. But at the same time, I've already said that you believe that a person should be able to control themselves, defend themselves, and that requires learning physical skills.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, and that's a lot of the development of the arts is you're defending against the village 10 miles over, because when spring comes, war comes, and they take your stuff, they take your women, and they take your children, so you have to defend. So in that sense, you kind of have to. It's like, well, they use a rock. Well, okay, I use a rock. Well, they use a rock. Well, I use a stick. I mean, it depends,
yeah, but we're not talking about any meditative practices that might go into some of the Eastern philosophy that filtered its way throughout the centuries. I just mean like simply, what's a strike? What's body awareness? What's redirecting their weight momentum? What's, like you said, if you're using an extended weapon like a sword, a bow staff, or a stick or something like that, what clearly in people of old were trained for war. Right?
Sure.
Even patriarchs in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
Abraham had 318 trained men in his household, right? That's a serious fighting force. And he took on the victor of the battle, Kedorlaomer, in Genesis 14.
Yes,
so
I love that.
Do you consider that a martial art, that they know how to handle themselves?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, but this is what I talk about. Like this is the struggle. I'm like, and it's just it's rough for me. It's rough for me learning all this.
Again, I think that's why I brought up Numbers 35 at the beginning of the show, that intent and hostility matters. Numbers 35, 16 through 22. Intent and hostility matters. So you can have weapons. We understand that there will be a time in the future when Christ returns, weapons would be turned into plowshares. We get that, right? Peace on earth. But in the meantime, unfortunately,
War's here.
It's a part of reality. And even Christ said, there'll be a time you have to take up the sword, right?
Yeah.
Sell your cloak and buy a sword. So we understand that there is, just as anything in this world that can be used to protect those who need protection, the enemy can use it for exploitation and death and violence, and right, he can turn what could be a thing that you use in righteousness to protect others, which I believe is the honorable sense of a martial art. Worship to a false god, suddenly you've got ninja.
Right, and this is where you stumbled onto this, but this is where I would tell you in response to what I asked would be, well, I would then tell you, well, you have to separate yourself from the religious part of it, and then just go, like I mentioned earlier, if you're grounded in biblical understanding,
right,
and you approach it in that way, then it doesn't matter what skills you have. I don't care what skills you have, right? It's the heart behind the skill.
Yeah, we're not trying to teach people some hidden sheet to explode your heart here. We're just trying to, we're not. Yeah.
That's.
Yeah,
go ahead. No, I'm not going to touch that. So.
Yeah, the point is, it depends on your teacher. You can be led into the mystical side of martial arts if you have an Eastern teacher. But at the same time, there's the movements themselves, the basic concepts of self-defense are practical and available, and you can defend the widow, the poor, and the orphan with those moves just as well.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to gather a chi fireball out of my side like Street Fighter, but I think that I can gather a pretty decent sliding sidekick to ward off somebody. So, guys, I'm looking in the chat. I just see a bunch of EOs arguing. The same thing you guys always argue.
I wish people would ask more direct questions on this. It's needed.
Yeah. Well, I think that was a part of the trolling today. It was another channel trying to troll us with a bunch of distractions. People just arguing over, they're the true church. You can't interpret scripture. You must appeal to our bishops and church fathers, all that kind of nonsense over and over again.
In some ways,
I wish there was boxing lessons at liturgy. I wish. Actually, that my father pastored a church when I was younger, and that's how I got introduced to martial arts, is because there was a guy that attended the church that started offering basic karate lessons for children in the gymnasium attached to the church. And so I did that. That's how I got into it to start.
In some ways, I think sometimes maybe it wouldn't matter if you knew a martial art or not, if the Father presses his spirit upon you and gets you out of a situation, just naturally.
Yeah.
So, because I think, I'm not trying to nitpick or cherry pick on a specific type of person, but I'm using this person as an example because Brother Matthew Jensen, that guy is stellar. I mean, he is so humble. And dude, I think you're right up there with him in how I see you guys and how you respond with people in respect and in the care you give. And I just couldn't see him getting into a confrontation. And you could see someone confront him, but I don't see him, but I also, it's.
Well, I'll let you know, White Cloud. I've been to his house, had dinner with him, sat on his porch and had a beer with him. If someone to regress upon his family, I could see him getting into a confrontation.
Yes.
But he definitely portrays himself as humble. He is humble, and he's very well-mannered and patient and measured in his demeanor.
Yes, and that's what I'm talking about, is that well-measured behavior, and we want to be there first. That's the blanket of safety, and then after that, after the blanket of safety gets ripped off or the Band-Aid gets ripped off, here we go.
That's well said. DB, hey, welcome. Did you have something to ask?
Oh, hi, guys. sorry about that. I just sort of just came in now. Maybe I've been listening for 5 minutes. Tried to read the comments to get up to speed on what position you were taking on this. So if you don't mind, I'm a little fresh here. I'm curious to see the stance that you're taking. That it is permissible for a Christian. I was almost getting the impression you were saying it's recommended to be trained to have that ability to defend yourself.
Yeah, it's recommended that you are trained in tactical situational awareness as well as personal self-defense, so you can know the situation you're in, whether it requires force or not, that you can have the wisdom to make those decisions wisely.
Understood. I guess at the top of my head, guys, I guess I'm just starting to this just off the cuff, so to speak. To avoid the situation, I think would be the primary disposition to take. You would sort of pray, God, don't put me into this position where I'm not forced to assume I can overtake somebody. And so there's always somebody stronger than you, as the saying goes. As a very last resort, I will use self-defense enough to incapacitate the aggressor, just enough for me to escape. And that's very problematic if I've got loved ones or dependents with me. I would always try to avoid, because I don't know how many guys the other person has. For example, if he's got a weapon on him, how trained he might, how formidable he might be.
Yeah,
I would always hope to avoid the situation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you do want to try to de-escalate or leave the area of danger. Absolutely,
Yes.
that is definitely your first recourse. But if that danger aggresses onto your property or aggresses into your space and you have nowhere to go, then you need to be able to know how to handle the situation.
Yeah, and I would instinctively, even as much as I've read the Bible and so forth, and do believe in sort of peace and love, let's say, or turn the other cheek, if you will, if that's in this context or not. I would resort to some physical sort of altercation, and if it's just a matter of pushing him away, blocking his, the swings or whatever. Yeah, it's a problematic situation. I don't think you turn the other cheek when your life is threatened. I
Right.
think
No,
maybe
that's not what Christ was talking about.
right. It's sort of more of an insult, something that right. Sean, I might endorse some physical activity, so to speak, to avoid to desist the imminent threat.
Yes, absolutely. Stop the imminent threat to yourself or others, or to the potential victim, those who are helpless. But but be capable, right? Be capable, so that you can basically subdue the person and possibly remove his potential to hurt you. So, like when we were watching this news article, and by the way, DB, I don't know, are you from Canada?
Yes,
Do you live in Canada now?
I'm in Toronto. Yes.
Okay. Have you seen the news article we've been reviewing for this discussion?
I hovered over it slightly and
Okay.
in the vid. Yeah.
So basically, in the United States, in Louisiana, southern United States, there was a guy being antagonistic to a pastor, and the pastor got in a fight with the guy, and that's what started this conversation. Okay.
Huh.
So the pastor won the fight, but is also probably going to get charged legally because he did more than just subdue the guy. He showed to be the physical aggressor. So this is where no, he didn't. Well, that's going to be up for people to decide. There's a lot of unconfirmed details about the case, but what's caught on camera is that the pastor is crossing a 4-lane road to get to the guy shouting at him, and then they get in a fight. And so we're just talking about kind of the ins and outs of how to be wise in these situations. And yes, in some circumstances you can just leave and run away, and others you may have to get into an altercation. And in my opinion, yes, it's better if you truly feel the guy's trying to take your life. I have no problems breaking arms or legs or wrists or elbows or dislocating knees or incapacitating the guy as much as possible, as quickly as possible.
Right.
Yes, White Cloud.
I don't mean to laugh. You are correct. Breaking a limb is better than taking a life.
Breaking a limb is better than punching the guy thinking that you knocked him out and turning your back, and he gets up and comes and stabs you,
Right.
or gets up and pushes you into traffic because you're
So
walking
in other
away.
words, you would want to use the amount of force necessary to actually stop the threat. When the threat is over, you stop.
And sometimes you may dislocate a shoulder, a wrist. You may, twist his knee. You may get yourself in a situation because you're trying to get him to stop. Versus, it's not the movies. It's not just, oh, you guys exchange punches standing until someone falls down and then he's like, all right, I've had enough, and then you walk away. It's usually not like that, right?
Right. I get. It's interesting. With to be trained in it though, and I'm sort of asking more than making a statement that if you train for this, you're almost inviting it. Like don't carry a gun unless you're going to use it. Like if you convince yourself it's necessary to carry a gun, and I'm using that sort of analogy that if you're training your body to fight and defend yourself, and there's no threat as days go by, you know what I mean? The training becomes in vain a little bit. And does this trigger one to maybe
not if you're
over?
Not if you're trained properly, brother. The whole point of good martial art training is self-control and integrity. So you're not supposed to be being trained to be the bully or the aggressor.
Carrying a gun does not negate the ability to walk, talk, see, and move. So if you have the option to move, you don't necessarily have to draw a gun. It's about your mindset and the options that you understand in the moment.
Right.
Personal threat and danger is perceived by the individual. So
Right.
what you perceive as a threat is different than what I perceive as a threat based on my skill and ability.
True.
So you have the right to defend yourself, but you may not have a right to draw the gun just because you have it on your hip. So
Right.
if
Especially
you
in
are,
America, we have laws. Depends on what state you're in. There's a lot of nuance.
you can be an irresponsible carrier of a firearm just as easily as you can be a irresponsible speaker
Yes.
with your
Yeah.
words.
True.
So I'm not sure it's as simple as if you carry a firearm, you invite it. If you only see that as your option and you are untrained, training allows you a grand or a larger scope of options. The more you understand your options to be, the less limited you are in how you choose to handle or respond to a situation.
Right. So then I would say to myself, then, okay, Dan, you're in for quite a few months, years of training, because you got to keep the stuff up. Don't use it, you lose it. But I may never use it. So that's sort of the mentality that sort of comes in. I'm going to train an hour a day. I should stay fit and to be a formidable fighter, because you're different size. You don't want size to matter, all that stuff. Maybe 2 or 3 guys you got to fend off. That's something that I may never use.
Yeah.
Like that.
Being fit, being a formidable fighter, those are all subjective. I would just say that, a person should learn how to handle themselves in a physical altercation, so that he can protect himself and his loved ones from an aggressor. And just because you train to learn how to do that doesn't mean that you're seeking it out. You're talking to 2 people right here who've trained to learn how to do that. We don't seek it out. It's not. It doesn't go through my thought process ever. If I'm in a large group of people, I'm not thinking about, oh, who can I beat up today? No, I'm just thinking, where are the exits? How many people are here? Is there anyone that looks suspicious? I'm looking at a whole bunch of other indicators to safety other than just simply who's the biggest dude so I can knock him down. I don't think like that.
You ever see that silly meme on the internet that says it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war? So
That's right.
right. So
Right.
you should be capable and you are accountable. And if you're responsible, you understand those ideas and you carry that with you. So you'll understand how dangerous it is to pull your firearm if you're trained. But I don't mean you went through a weekend course to allow you to carry a firearm.
Right.
Training with a firearm it's an extended period of time. That means once you obtain a firearm, you continually train with the firearm. because as you stated, if you don't use it, you lose it, right?
Right, of course.
So I would suggest continually training. You could put a sword on the wall. It's still a sword, but it's on the wall. It doesn't do you any good. You're not training with it. If you pull that sword out, you could cut yourself. So you don't want to be trained just enough to where you're dangerous to yourself and others. You want to be trained so that you're capable and accountable, and that you have command over your desire in the moment. Command over your skills is different than having skills themselves. Having the command over your skill is a completely different level.
Yes, no, I agree. I'm trying to think to myself of people, the congregation itself. You're in a church, and not everybody is physically inclined to that type of development and so forth. Not everybody has that athletic, capability and so forth. So a man with his wife and children, does he just train? Bear with me. You guys know Woody Allen, the actor Woody Allen?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, a guy of, and bear with me, I don't mean to be critical, but a guy of that stature, of that sort of temperament and so forth, is he in his mind taking your advice? Does he go into training to?
Yes, brother. Yeah, you just described 1 billion people in China. They're all the size of Woody Allen. Yeah, they can all learn martial arts. Your size doesn't always deter you from learning the principles, the awareness, the bodily composure, the discipline that's required, the understanding the movement of the body. So yeah, your size doesn't matter, and your temperament. If you're more mild-mannered, that's, in my opinion, it's even better, because the hot-headed, aggressive ones are the ones that are a problem that many martial arts instructors will not even teach.
Right. And I remember Bruce Lee saying once, "I know the minute a man's lost control, I've won the fight. The minute my opponent has gotten angry, the minute that he's lost his temper." Sorry, that's what I meant to say. Lost his temper, I've won the fight. Yeah.
Well, Bruce Lee said that while screaming like a chicken. You're right.
Did you know like Bruce Lee?
No, I did. I'm just saying he definitely portrayed himself as angry and rageful while fighting. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, you want to remain calm and composed.
Right. Yes.
Hey guys, I love this conversation, but I have to go soon.
Okay, yeah. Both of you, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and all. Maybe I'll see you on another one.
Yeah, thanks for calling in, guys.
Thank you, guys.
White Cloud, thank you so much.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, yes. Appreciate you guys.
See ya.
Okay. Thanks for hey, tell me what you think in the comments. Like this video, drop your comment. What do you feel about this pastor situation? If you don't like my take, articulate it. Don't just say you disagree. Articulate where I'm wrong. What, did you feel like I'm using the scriptures out of context when I mentioned the concepts of the details and Exodus and Numbers that break down the details of a fight, who's justified? Also, with King David, when he was told, hey, you're a weapon and Yahweh's pointing you at the enemies of Israel, go after it, he did it. But then also, when someone is hunting him down and with murderous threats towards him, he restrains himself in composure like he did with Saul. So the Bible is full of wisdom for us in our day. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.